So we're going to start with the introduction to C language programming. So for this course, I have just shared with you the online compiler. That is one compiler that you can actually use easily off the hook, off the shelf. But at the same time, I also would like you all to use this IDE. So IDE stands for Integrated Development Environment, which means this one environment itself allows you to have your code editor, you will have your compiler, you'll be able to see the terminal, and you also will be able to do the debugging. So it's like a one-stop center. So that's why it is called as Integrated Development Environment, IDE. So you can actually use the Visual Studio Code, VS Code, to write and compile codes as well as execute. So in your slides, the steps are already given. So I will not be going through the steps now, but you please do go through those steps and install VS Code. How many of you have used VS Code before? No. Okay, some of you have used. So VS Code is a very powerful IDE. Not only you can use it for C programming, you can use it for any programming languages. So personally, I use it to write HTML code for my websites, and also my Java programming, and also my mobile app application. Is that okay? So please do click on this link and follow the steps. Is that okay? Now you are advised to bring your own laptop to every class. So here's the thing. Some of you may have laptops, some of you may have tablets. Whichever that you feel comfortable, that you're able to type the code, please do it so. Now here, can I see a show of hand for any one of you who do not have laptop or tablet? So everyone have? Is that okay? Everyone has it? Why are you on your headphone? Translation, is it? Not translating, I say translating what I'm saying. So here are some of the introduction. Now there is a debate, or sometimes two school of thought with regards to saying that whether C is a high-level language or a middle-level language. So it can be considered as both, middle or high. So whenever you want to develop a program in C, the program actually undergoes the following process. So the first one, what you'll be doing is you'll be doing the editing or typing the code itself. And then when we click build, this is the internal mechanism. The compiler will be doing this. It will do the pre-processing, it will compile, and it will link with all those libraries. And finally, when you want to run, it will run the executable files. So whenever you compile, build your code, there will be a lot of output files. And what of those output files are known as executable files. So when you run the code, it will run the executable files, and it will execute the code, and it will give you the output. So this is what in the background it is actually doing. So since we are learning in C programming, so whenever we type the code, where's my point option? So whenever we are programming, we always want to save the file as .c. This is the file extension. Do you know what is the extension for Word file? Guys, it's a question. Do you know what's the extension for Word file? DOCX. When you save the file documents, that's how it actually got saved, right? PowerPoint. What is the extension? .ppt. So in C, it is .c. So whenever the compiler sees this, it reads from the extension. It knows that if it's .c, it is actually written in C language. So likewise, every programming language HTML will have .html. Java, Python will have .py. So based on the extension, we can actually understand what type of file it is. So the C file is actually built to create an executable file. So this is the process that we're actually seeing. So when a user runs the program, the computer will load the program into the RAM. So this is your memory, your computer's memory, and the processor will actually execute it. So then only we'll be able to see the output. Now this is, in all programming language, always this is the standard line, hello world. Do you know why hello world? Because when they created the first programming language, they tested it with this line. So therefore, in any programming language, you will see the first thing is always you have this hello world. So here is the structure of a C program. So when you run the program, it actually prints the text hello world to the terminal. So, okay, so, oh wait, sorry. So, has everyone opened your online compiler? So in this online compiler, so this is a free version, so you can see the language that it's using is actually C. So we are using C online compiler. So this is the basic structure of a C programming. So here is where you have the include file. You must have the main, and you must have this open and close curly brackets. So when you click on this run, on top do you see this run function? So when you click run, what's happening at the background is, do you see it actually executes hello world? Bottom here. The terminal, hello world is being portrayed here, hello world. So what you are seeing now here is actually the text editor. So when the moment I click run, what it actually does is this. We already, of course we didn't do any editing or coding because the standard code was there. It does all this at the background. It pre-process, it compiles, it links with the header file, and then it will load and it will run the executable files. So the moment it runs the executables is when you get this output hello world. Is that okay? So now we will go through one by one. So when you run, the program prints the hello world. So that's what you actually get here, the hello world. Can you actually put your name there? Don't put my name, I'll put your name. Then you run. So each time, do you see your name coming out? Get your name? Sorry, let me just change the settings a little bit. So this is the code that you actually have seen. The numbers on the left, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 is the line number. So sometimes whenever you have anything to debug, it will actually give you the line number, which line number has some problem and things like that. So now let us try to study the code line by line. The first line that you saw on top was the include stdio.h. So this line of code, you have to start with the hash. Now this is the basic structure of C programming, which means you need to have all this element for the C programming code to be compiled. So this is what we call as a preprocessor directive. So preprocessor directive means it actually says to the compiler to search for this header file. The header file name is stdio standard input output. Standard input output.h. So whenever you see the extension .h, it means it is a header file. Inside this stdio, standard input output function. So in this code, the entire code here, can you just roughly guess which part of the keyword here is giving some output in your terminal? Yes, the keyword printf. Printf. Now these are some of the main keywords like main, printf. So how does it know when you actually run this printf to print out this string of hello world? That is because there's a function of this printf is defined in this stdio library, in this header. So to use that printf, to use the printf function, so that's why we have to include this header file. Otherwise, you will get a warning when you run the programming. So what are the example of programming, the warning that you'll get? So it says that warning, implicit declaration of function printf. Incompatible implicit declaration of the built-in function printf. So meaning to say that it is unable to recognize this printf. What is the function of this printf? It doesn't know. Because if you don't put the hash include stdio header file. So when you include this stdio header file, it actually defines what is the function of this printf. Is everyone okay? Any question up to this point? Okay or no? Any question that you all have? Okay, with regards to the class recording, I will be observing. Sometimes because the student know that the class recording will be there, then they don't pay attention in class. If that happens, I will immediately stop sharing the class recording. I only will share the class recording for those who genuinely unable to attend class, so that you can focus here during class. So we will discuss about header files at a later point of time. Another common preprocessor directive is hash define. So we look at all this define later. Line 2. So just now we were looking at line 1. Line 1 is hash include stdio. Line 2, of course, there's nothing here. There's nothing in line 2, right? So whenever in compiler, when you actually typing, if you let go of a space, nothing is actually happening there. Remember earlier in the video you saw that C programming is a sequential programming. It will run the code sequentially. So if you have empty lines, then nothing will be executed. But the empty lines help you to neatly manage your code. So let's show. If you look at this one, let's say without a space, like this. Is there anything wrong with this one? If you run also, it still will work. It's no problem. In terms of syntax, there's nothing wrong. But in terms of readability and how fast your eyes captures, it's a bit challenging. So that's why sometimes you use some space here. We use indentation. Indentation is tabbed. So it'll make it much more readable. So you have the open curly braces and the closed curly braces. So when you put this way, now it looks much more spaced out and it gives much more better readability. just for that sense. So as a programmer, it's actually very important for you to have this practice of indentation and also the spaces. That's what we call as, try to keep the programming looks neat. So that's the only function, otherwise no issues with that. Now this one, line 3, you have INT. INT stands for declaration known as integer. And there is a main, and then there's a curly bracket that mentions void. So in C programming, every program must have the main function. This is, you're trying to understand the structure of C programming. You must have the main. Main structure have to be there. So what is the main function? Why you need to have the main function? If you don't have main function in C programming, you'll throw an error. It says that main function is not found. So the main function here is the entry point. Entry point means when the compiler is compiling and they want to execute, it needs to know where do I start from. So whenever it sees that the main function, that is the entry point where the program start to be executed. Later point we will see in other topics, we will add more functions. We can have more functions, but every C program must have one main function. Without it, it won't work. So there are many other ways to actually write the functions, but for now, we will stick to this format. Now there is a link given here. This is a very good link. Let's see how to... Some of the reference links are actually given, so you can actually use it to read it. I can click control link. Skip verification. So this Gigs for Geeks is a very good reference, online reference that you can actually refer to whenever you actually want to learn anything about the main. So this is another way of writing just integer main. You don't have to write the keyword void. So this is a very good reference that you can actually have to go through it. Everyone okay so far? You must have the hash include file, the header file whenever you are dealing with the input output function, and you must have the main function. Now after the main function, there is this open and close curly bracket. This open and curly bracket always comes in pair. Whenever you have open, you must have the closed curly bracket. So in our code, the line 4, whenever you see the open curly bracket, it indicates that's the start of the main program, and the closed curly bracket, that is the end of the main program. So meaning to say that the code between line 4 to line 7, whatever is inside these two brackets, they are all fall under the main function. So all your code needs to be written within this open and closed curly bracket. So that's how the compiler understands what part of line of code falls into the main function. Any questions so far? We are trying to go through things simple. We are looking at the structure of the basic C programming. What are the components that you actually must have? Any questions? Anything that's unclear? Then the next line, we will see printf, hello world. So in the main program, you can actually have a lot of statements. We call each line as statements. Statements are the executable parts of a program, which means you execute it to do something. So in this case, we are using this printf. When you execute it, it will print the phrase hello world, and of course I've put in my name also, so it prints out that to the terminal. So we have an output terminal. So this output terminal is actually quite helpful for us to see what is the status of the code being run. So we will look into more details about printf. And one of the important thing is the statements in C, you have to end it with semicolon. Semicolon to indicate that this is the end of one statement. If you miss this character, you are violation of the syntax. So the grammar. So let's say if you miss this, you run, you will get error message. So you can try with the online compiler. If you just remove the semicolon at the end of every statement, it will throw an error. So these are some of the important things that you actually must have. And the last line that we saw is return 0. So again, every line in the main program is a statement. So this is another statement. This return statement, it actually ends the execution of a function and returns the control to the function where it was called. Now this one, you will see this when we learn function. I know you find it difficult to understand this. So when we look at the functions, then we know. So in this case, when the return statement is written here in the main function, the moment it sees the return 0 means it will terminate the program. So the function of writing return 0 means you don't want to run the program anymore. End and terminate the main program now. So you will end this. So variables we'll see in our next class. So what we have seen so far for today's class is that we have seen the basic structure, basic structure of a C programming and the components that you must have. One is you must have the directive. So hash include stdio, standard input, output is a standard things that you must include. Later point of time, you will see whenever you want to use some math functions, we will include the math header. Because each one of these header comes with a predefined keyword, like printf. This is actually a predefined keyword. It has a certain function, and the function is defined in the standard input output header file. And then you must have the main function, and you must have this open curly bracket and close curly bracket, and you can actually include the statement inside this main. Is that okay? So that will be the end of today's session. Are there any questions?